Winter is arriving with its quiet magic, and soon the world will glow with Christmas lights. Dear listener, especially the strong and beautiful women who join me here, I invite you to take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and sit with a warm cup of tea. Let this story be your companion tonight. If it touches your heart, don't forget to like and share. Someone you love might need this story too. The phone rang at 2:41 a.m., slicing through the silence of my house like a blade. I was awake before I understood why. Middle-of-the-night calls have always terrified me. But nothing, not the years of widowhood, not the lectures I gave as a psychology professor, could have prepared me for the voice waiting on the other end. Mrs. North, this is Street Augustine Medical Center. Your son, Gabriel North, has been admitted with a suspected cerebral artery rupture. You need to come now. My world snapped in half. I don't remember dressing. I don't remember grabbing my keys. I just remember the wind screaming against my car windows as I tore through the empty streets of Haldenport, Massachusetts, praying, bargaining, begging the universe to let me see my boy alive one more time. But by the time I reached the reception desk, still wearing my slippers, still shaking so hard I could barely hold my ID, "It's too late," the nurse said gently. "We're so sorry." Mr. North did not survive. I felt the floor tilt. I clung to the counter to keep from collapsing. No warning, no time, no last words. My brilliant, warm, stubborn son gone in an instant. But the next thing I heard nearly stopped my heart altogether. A young nurse approached me, glancing nervously up and down the hall before leaning close. "Mrs. North, there's something you should know," she whispered. "Someone else arrived about 20 minutes before you, a woman. She told the staff she was Mr. North's closest relative, but she refused to sign in. When the doctor informed her of his condition, she left, quickly." I froze. "What woman?" I asked. "His wife?" The nurse shook her head. "No. Mrs. Harrington North hasn't been here tonight at all. This woman was wearing a red coat." A chill crawled up my spine. Before I could ask more, the automatic doors slid open, and Lydia Harrington North, my daughter-in-law, walked in. She wasn't wearing a red coat. She wasn't crying. Her hair was still immaculate, makeup flawless, outfit expensive and composed, as if she were arriving at an early brunch rather than her husband's deathbed. "There was an accident on the interstate," she said calmly, removing oversized sunglasses. "I got here as fast as I could." I stared at her. A normal wife, any wife, would be frantic, unwashed, wild-eyed with grief. Lydia simply looked inconvenienced. A doctor approached, giving the standard explanation: massive rupture, no chance of recovery, nothing anyone could have done. I barely heard him. My ears were buzzing, my chest tight. Lydia stood beside me, resting one manicured hand on my shoulder for barely a second before drifting back to her phone. I told myself she was in shock. I wanted to believe it, until I saw her step away and whisper into her phone, voice low and cold. "Yes, it's over. Don't call me again tonight." My grief paused, just for a heartbeat replaced by a dark, crawling suspicion. Over? Over what? The air felt wrong. The room felt wrong. Lydia felt wrong. But I didn't have time to process it. I was ushered into a small consultation room to sign release forms. My hand shook so violently that the pen nearly slipped from my fingers. A hospital security officer approached with a troubled look. "Mrs. North, we reviewed the hallway footage to identify the woman in the red coat the nurse mentioned." I looked up sharply. "Yes?" He hesitated. "Ma'am, the footage from the emergency wing hallway was deleted." My blood went cold. Deleted? As in, someone manually erased it. About 30 minutes ago, just before you arrived. Deleted. Not corrupted. Not missing. Erased. Someone didn't want that woman identified. Someone had walked into the hospital, gone straight to the system, and removed only that portion of video. A cover-up. But why? And who? Behind me, Lydia emerged from the consultation room, her eyes fixed on me with an expression I couldn't yet name. Not grief. Not fear. Something closer to calculation. "Let's go home, Margaret," she said smoothly. "There's nothing more to do here." But I wasn't sure that was true. As I followed her out of the hospital, clutching my son's documents to my chest, I felt it clearly. Gabriel was trying to tell me something. The woman in red, the deleted footage, Lydia's strange phone call. Something about my son's death didn't add up, and from the cold way Lydia held the door open for me, I knew this was only the beginning. If you've ever faced loss or betrayal from someone you should have been able to trust, tell me in the comments. And please like and subscribe so more people can find the strength to share their stories too. But as I held my granddaughter Aria later that morning, her small body trembling as she asked where Daddy was, a terrifying realization clenched around my heart. My nightmare wasn't the loss of my son. My nightmare was realizing his death might not have been an accident, and the people involved might still be watching us. The church bells tolled with a slow, deliberate weight, each strike echoing through the crisp morning air like a countdown to something I wasn't yet prepared to face. Gabriel's funeral, a day I once imagined attending in my 80s, not at 62. A day I prayed I'd never see. And yet, there I was, sitting in the front pew of St. Helena's chapel, hands clenched so tightly together my knuckles whitened. Funerals reveal truths about people, who they were, what they meant, who truly loved them. But that morning, the biggest truth revealed wasn't about Gabriel. It was about Lydia. She stood near the casket in a sleek black dress, tailored so perfectly it bordered on indecent in its elegance. Designer. Subtle, expensive, curated. Her hair fell in perfect waves over her shoulders, makeup understated but flawless. And while people with genuine grief trembled, gasped, or dissolved into quiet sobs, Lydia looked like she was attending a photography session. She even positioned herself deliberately beneath the stained glass window so the sunlight would halo her hair. A performance. And I, a former psychology professor who'd spent decades studying human behavior, recognized an emotional charade the way a sommelier recognizes wine. She was too composed, too polished, too aware of the room. As mourners approached her, she gently touched her necklace, lowered her gaze, and offered a soft smile, a perfect act of grief. But I saw the truth. I saw the slight lift of her chin whenever someone of means approached. I saw her eyes dart, calculating social value like stock prices. I saw her shift closer only to the guests Gabriel had once described as high-net-worth clients. It was as if she was selecting her next life raft. Meanwhile, little Aria North, only 7 years old, clung to my side like a terrified kitten. Her small hand never left mine. She didn't put on a show. She didn't hide behind sunglasses or dramatics. She simply cried quiet, trembling sobs that broke my already shattered heart. "Is Daddy really in there?" she whispered, her tear-blurred gaze fixed on the polished casket inches away. "Yes," I said softly, my throat tight. "His body is. But the part that loved you, the part that made him Daddy, that part stays with you. Always." She nodded against my shoulder, her tiny body shaking. Lydia didn't so much as reach out to comfort her. Instead, she drifted away to greet an arriving couple, founders of a major tech firm, flashing a grief-stricken smile so precise it could have been rehearsed. I forced myself to focus on the eulogies, but even then, Lydia overshadowed everything. She dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief that remained completely dry, a charlatan's tear. After the service, mourners approached to share stories about Gabriel, a father he'd helped win custody of his children, a young woman he'd defended pro bono, an elderly man whose home Gabriel had saved from foreclosure. With every story, my heart cracked open further, a bittersweet mix of pride and agony. Gabriel had been good, kind, just, a man who believed in helping people, even when it cost him. And he married her. At the reception hall, Lydia stayed glued to her phone whenever no one important was watching. And then I saw it, something that froze me. She stepped into a corner, whispering intensely with a tall man in a charcoal suit. His presence screamed money and danger, sharp jawline, immaculate grooming, the kind of confidence money breeds. When they noticed me watching, Lydia flinched and stepped away quickly. The man turned, plastering on a polite smile. "Mrs. North," Lydia said smoothly, recovering. "This is Victor Mallory, one of Gabriel's real estate partners." He gave me a curt, almost dismissive handshake. "My condolences," he said, but his eyes betrayed nothing. Why was Lydia speaking to him so intimately? Why did they step apart like people hiding something? My stomach tightened, but before I could question it, I heard someone behind me whisper, "You must be Margaret." I turned to see a silver-haired woman with sharp eyes and a posture that spoke of decades in academia. I'm Mrs. Vance, she said solemnly. I taught Lydia years ago. My eyebrows rose. You knew her well? Well enough. Her expression tightened. You should be very careful with her. My breath hitched. Careful? Why? Mrs. Vance glanced toward Lydia, who was now laughing actually, laughing with another well-dressed man. There are people, she murmured, whose true selves remain hidden until they believe they have something to gain or something to lose. Lydia always knew how to adapt her face to her audience. But underneath, she shook her head. I hope for your sake that what I remember is no longer true. Before I could ask more, she slipped away into the crowd, leaving me with a fresh spike of dread. As if on cue, Rowan Calvert, Gabriel's longtime friend and attorney, approached. His face was worn, eyes red, grief carved deep into his features. I'm so sorry, Margaret, he whispered, giving me a steadying embrace. I still can't believe he's gone. Neither can I. He inhaled shakily. We'll need to meet soon. Gabriel left. Arrangements. Instructions. Things he wanted handled quickly. Across the room, Lydia's head snapped toward us like a predator spotting movement. Arrangements? She interjected, gliding toward us. We should handle everything tomorrow. I want this settled as soon as possible. For Aria's sake. There it was again. That rehearsed line she'd been using all morning. For Aria's sake. But I saw what flickered behind her eyes at Rowan's words, something sharp, something panicked. Tomorrow at 3, Rowan said simply. My office. Lydia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Perfect. Later, as I lifted a sleeping Aria into my arms, Lydia strolled by, scrolling through her phone. I have 17 missed calls, she muttered irritably. People expect so much from a widow. A widow. You'd think she'd just completed a charity marathon, not lost her husband. What arrangements? I asked softly. What's so urgent? She closed her compact mirror with a click, fixing a strand of hair. Life, Margaret, she said coolly. Life doesn't stop because someone dies. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just held Aria tighter, feeling her small heartbeat against mine. As we drove home, with Aria's soft breathing filling the silence, everything pressed down on me at once. The mysterious woman in the red coat, the deleted footage, Lydia's chilling composure, her whispered phone call, it's over, her secretive conversation with Victor Mallory, the warning from Mrs. Vance, and somewhere beneath all of it, the unmistakable sensation that Gabriel had known something, that he'd feared something, and that whatever it wasn't finished, not by a long shot. Rowan Calvert's office sat on the top floor of a limestone building near Haldenport's old financial district, a place Gabriel used to joke smelled like mahogany and generational wealth. But as I stood in the elevator the next afternoon, Aria's small fingers wrapped tightly around mine, I felt nothing comforting about the polished walls or soft music humming overhead. A storm was brewing. I could feel it in my bones. Lydia stepped out of a separate elevator like she'd been waiting to make an entrance. Black suit, silk blouse, no trace of grief on her porcelain face. She kissed Aria on the head, a gesture so quick and practiced it made my stomach twist. Let's get this over with, she murmured, adjusting her cuffs as if preparing for a board meeting instead of a will reading. Rowan greeted us with hollow eyes and a firm handshake. He'd aged 10 years in the few days since Gabriel's death. He led us into a conference room with bookshelves lining the walls and a single long table at the center. On that table rested a thick manila folder, Gabriel's will. As we sat, Rowan cleared his throat, steepling his fingers. Before I begin, he said quietly, I want to remind you both that this will was updated recently, 3 months ago. I looked at Lydia, her eyebrows arched, only slightly but enough. 3 months ago was when Gabriel had started spending more weekends at my house. When he'd begun looking tired, distracted, haunted, Rowan opened the folder and began reading. This is the last will and testament of Gabriel Elias North, dated March 14th of this year. I squeezed Aria's hand gently under the table. To my wife, Lydia Harrington North, I leave the penthouse on Harborview Terrace, the Harrington heirloom jewelry, and a financial sum held in Account B of North Capital Management. A small inheritance, but still substantial by most standards. Lydia nodded, unsurprised, almost smug. Then Rowan continued, voice steady. To my mother, Margaret Ann North, I leave the following. My primary residence at 11 Winslow Court. all vehicles titled under my name, my personal checking account at Haldenport First Bank, and all physical assets not otherwise designated. The temperature in the room dropped. What? Lydia said sharply. That house? That house is mine. Ours. Rowan didn't flinch. The property was purchased solely in Gabriel's name before your marriage. It was never transferred into joint ownership. That's ridiculous, Lydia spat. We lived there together, and that does not alter the legal title, Rowan replied calmly. I sat frozen. I had no idea Gabriel intended to leave me the house. He'd told me once it was the only place where he truly felt home. But why give it to me, knowing Lydia would challenge it? Rowan continued reading. All educational trusts established for my daughter, Aria North, shall remain under the sole trusteeship of my mother, Margaret North. My heart stuttered. Lydia's chair scraped violently against the floor. She doesn't get to control Aria's future. This is outrageous. Gabriel would never. He would, Rowan interrupted firmly. He did. He wasn't well. He was stressed. He wasn't thinking clearly. Lydia snapped, her voice cracking under the strain. Rowan lifted a second document. And there is one more component. Lydia went rigid. There is an addendum, he said. Sealed and designated for private viewing by Margaret only. He slid a smaller envelope toward me, sealed, with Gabriel's handwriting spelling my name. My breath caught. Lydia lunged. That's illegal. I'm his wife. I have the right to know. No. You don't, Rowan said sharply, blocking her hand with the folder. Gabriel was explicit. Only Margaret. For the first time since Gabriel died, Lydia's mask slipped completely. Her pupils narrowed, her jaw clenched. A flash of pure fury crossed her face like something feral trying to claw its way out. Then she turned icily calm. I'm contesting this, she said, rising to her full height. Every single word. Yes, Rowan replied evenly. You have that legal right. But you should be aware. Gabriel provided extensive documentation supporting his decisions. Lydia paled. And I knew Gabriel had anticipated exactly this moment. Victor Mallory, the redcoat woman, the deleted footage. All of it suddenly felt connected, like threads pulling tighter around a truth I wasn't ready to see. Lydia stormed out of the office, slamming the door so hard the framed certificates rattled. Aria flinched violently, burying her face against my shoulder. Rowan exhaled shakily. Margaret, he said softly, take the envelope home. Read it when you're alone. My fingers brushed the paper, my son's handwriting, my son's final instructions. I felt like holding it might shatter me. As I gathered Aria's things, Rowan added in a lower voice. Gabriel was worried, Margaret, very worried. And not for himself. I swallowed hard. For who? He looked at Aria. For both of you. Outside, the sky had darkened with the threat of rain. Aria slipped her hand into mine as we walked down the steps. Grandma? She whispered. Yes, sweetheart? Daddy told me a secret once, before he went away. My breath stilled. What secret? She hesitated, glancing around as if someone might hear. He said, if anything bad ever happened, I should stay close to you. Because you're the only one who knows how to keep us safe. My knees nearly buckled. What do you mean, baby? Aria leaned closer, her voice trembling. And he said, not to trust Mommy when she starts acting like she's happy. I froze. Happy? Lydia? A chill hit me so hard I couldn't breathe. Why would he say that? I asked softly. Aria looked up at me with wide, frightened eyes. Because, he said, Mommy gets happy when she's lying. My heart slammed painfully against my ribs. I knew then that the envelope in my purse, the one sealed by Gabriel himself, would not just change my life. It would change everything. I didn't open the envelope until after Aria had fallen asleep. She lay curled in my bed, clutching Gabriel's old scarf the way other children clutched stuffed toys. Her breath was soft, her face blotchy from crying, her small hand still wrapped around my wrist even in her dreams, as if afraid I'd disappear too. It broke me, but it also steeled me. Only when her breathing settled into a steady rhythm did I slip away, padding quietly down the hall to Gabriel's old study. I shut the door, turned the lock, and sat at his desk, the place where he had spent thousands of hours working, thinking, worrying. The ghost of his presence still lingered there. My fingers trembled as I slid the envelope from my purse. My name was written in his handwriting. Mom. Just that. Short, gentle, trusting. I pressed the envelope to my chest for a moment, because opening something like this felt like opening a wound. Then I broke the seal. A single letter, a single page. But enough to fracture the life I thought I knew. Mom, if you're reading this, then the worst has happened? The breath left my lungs, and I wasn't able to fix things in time. I gripped the paper, knuckles white. You need to listen to me carefully. Lydia is not who she pretends to be. I stopped breathing altogether. I don't mean that in a jealous husband way. I mean it in the way a lawyer means it when they uncover someone's second life. There are things she's hiding, dangerous things. My pulse thudded painfully in my ears. 3 months ago, I discovered she had ties to the Mallory syndicate. I can't explain everything here, it's not safe on paper, but Victor Mallory is not just a business contact. He's part of something darker. She's been feeding him information, financial data, names, resources, even access. My hands shook so hard the paper rustled like dry leaves. And lately, she's been asking me to sign things, transfer things, put her name on accounts. She thinks I don't see the pattern. I do. I finally do. A cold sweat broke out across my back. I tried to confront her once. She smiled and said she'd make my life easier soon. I don't know what she meant, but I know she's capable of more than she lets anyone see. My heart hammered. I'm writing this because I don't know how far she'll go, or whether she'll act alone. Victor has been pushing her. I've seen enough to suspect they're planning to leave the country. I felt sick. If anything happens to me, even if it looks like an accident, you must assume it was not natural. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. Don't confront her. Don't let her know what you know. Don't underestimate her. I swallowed hard, clenching the letter. Protect Aria. Keep her close. She is the only thing that matters. Then, the last lines written shakier, as if he'd hesitated. Mom, I'm sorry. I should have listened to you years ago. I love you. I trust you to do what I no longer can. Gabriel? I pressed the letter to my chest and sobbed. Not the kind of sobbing you can hide behind tissue paper and polite silence. No, this was raw, trembling, aching grief. Grief soaked with terror. My son had known. He had seen the danger coming, and he hadn't been able to stop it. As tears dripped onto the page, I forced myself to breathe. I had to think. I had to be steady, clear, calm the way I taught hundreds of students to be when analyzing human behavior. Because Lydia wasn't just selfish or cold. She was something else entirely, and now I had proof. I folded the letter back into its envelope, locked it in Gabriel's desk drawer, and wiped my face with shaking hands. As I stood, a faint tapping noise made me freeze, a soft metal clink. From the hallway, my pulse spiked. I stepped closer to the door. Tap, tap, tap. Someone trying to turn the handle. Very slowly, I switched off the desk lamp, plunging the room into quiet darkness. Footsteps shifted outside, soft, deliberate. Then a voice. Lydia's voice. Margaret? Are you still awake? My blood turned to ice. I stood motionless, barely breathing. After a moment, the footsteps retreated. I didn't exhale until I heard her bedroom door close, but fear churned in my stomach. She'd been checking on me, late at night, outside Gabriel's study. She didn't know what I'd been reading, but she sensed something. And if Lydia felt her control slipping, God help us. I returned to bed, sliding under the covers next to Aria. She stirred, then instinctively nestled against me. I wrapped an arm around her and whispered into her hair, I've got you, sweetheart. I promise, I won't let anything happen to you. But as I stared into the darkness, listening to every faint sound in the house, one brutal truth settled into my bones. Gabriel didn't just leave me a letter. He left me a war. And Lydia had just realized she wasn't fighting it alone. The next morning, the house felt like it was holding its breath. Even the sunlight filtering through the curtains seemed muted, like the day itself didn't want to intrude on our fragile reality. Aria ate breakfast silently, stirring her oatmeal without taking a single bite until I coaxed her gently. Lydia, however, waltzed into the kitchen at 9:14 a.m. Hair blown out, makeup perfect, wearing a fitted cream blazer and holding a latte from her favorite cafe. Good morning, she said with manufactured warmth. I barely slept. Grief does strange things to the body, doesn't it? Grief. The word hung in the air like a cruel parody. I studied her carefully as she sipped her latte. She hadn't shed a single real tear since Gabriel died. She hadn't asked how Aria was coping. She hadn't even acknowledged the heaviness that clung to the house like fog, and yet she smiled. A thin, controlled smile that never touched her eyes. "So," Lydia said, sliding onto a stool at the counter and crossing her legs elegantly, "we need to discuss the logistics of everything." My heart thudded. Logistics, her favorite word when she wanted control, dressed up in formality. She placed her latte down with deliberate precision. "I've been thinking, Margaret. With the house situation being confusing, and with Aria's emotional needs right now, I'm proposing a transition plan." "A transition plan?" I repeated, keeping my voice neutral. "Yes." She steepled her fingers, imitating the posture of a therapist she definitely wasn't. "A gradual adjustment that serves everyone, especially Aria." Out of habit, I took mental notes, tone calculated, eye contact intentional, posture dominant. Notes I would later write in my journal for the custody evaluation Gabriel had anticipated. Lydia continued, "I believe it would be healthiest for Aria if she and I moved out within the next 2 weeks." My spoon slipped into the sink with a metallic clatter. "Move out?" I asked carefully. "Where would you go?" She smiled brightly, falsely. "I've been looking at a lovely condo in downtown Haldenport. Walking distance to cultural spaces, high security, private parking, very modern, a perfect place for a fresh start." A fresh start. That phrase again, spoken with an unsettling lightness. "And what about Aria's school?" I asked. "She'll adjust. Children are adaptable." My chest tightened with anger. Lydia's version of parenting always leaned heavily on the hope that children simply adapt to whatever she imposed. "Besides," Lydia added, tapping her manicured nails against the counter, "I've also been considering taking a short break somewhere warm. Chicago, maybe. Or farther." My entire body went cold. "Farther?" I pressed. She shrugged nonchalantly. "Maybe a long stay in Street Bastien. I read it's wonderful for healing routines. Ocean air, massages, fresh cuisine. It could be transformative for Aria." Transformative for Aria. A terrifying euphemism. I forced myself to breathe steadily. "Lydia," I said gently, "has Aria said she wants to travel right now?" Her expression darkened briefly, sharply before smoothing over. "Margaret," she said in a tone that was part condescension, part warning, "you're letting your emotions cloud your judgment. Aria needs her mother." I opened my mouth, but Aria, small and fragile, spoke first. "I don't want to go anywhere." We both turned. She stood there, clutching her little rabbit plush, chin trembling. "I want to stay here. I want to stay with Grandma." The conviction in her voice wasn't loud. It was soft in that way children speak when they're telling the truth and hoping it doesn't break anything. Lydia's jaw tightened. "Aria," she said in a cool, rehearsed voice, "we don't make decisions based on fear. You'll love Street Bastien," Victor said. She froze. She hadn't meant to say his name. My heart thudded violently. "Victor said what?" I asked quietly. Her nostrils flared. "You misheard me." "No," I said, meeting her eyes unwaveringly. "I heard you perfectly." A long, simmering silence filled the room. Then Lydia stood abruptly, grabbing her purse so hard the strap squeaked. "I don't have time for this drama," she snapped. "I have a meeting with my attorney this afternoon, and I'll expect your cooperation when we finalize everything." She turned sharply to Aria. "Kiss Mommy goodbye." Aria stepped backward, half hiding behind my leg. Lydia's face hardened, her patience thinning to a razor's edge. She hated when anything, especially her own child, didn't perform on command. "Fine," she hissed. "We'll fix this attitude later." She stormed toward the front door, heels clacking sharply on the hardwood. Just before she left, she paused, turned back, and spoke in a voice like honey laced with arsenic. "Oh, and Margaret?" "Yes. Don't make plans for the house yet. Things are going to change soon." The door slammed. Silence fell so heavily I could feel it pressing on my chest. Aria looked up at me, lip trembling. "Grandma," she whispered, "why does Mommy get more scary when she smiles?" I pulled her into my arms, swallowing the lump rising in my throat. "I don't know, sweetheart," I whispered, "but I promise you, I won't let anything bad happen." Inside, however, I felt the truth forming like a bruise. Lydia wasn't just preparing to move out. She was preparing to disappear. And she meant to take Aria with her. But not if I could help it. Not while I still had Gabriel's letter. Not while I still had time. This wasn't a transition plan. It was the beginning of a custody war, and Lydia had just made her first move. Night has a way of revealing truths daylight politely ignores. Shadows stretch longer, silence grows louder, and the human mind, especially one trying to stay vigilant, picks up details it would normally overlook. That night, every instinct I possessed screamed that something was off. Aria had fallen asleep, curled beside me again, her breath warm against my shoulder. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the heater and the creak of old floorboards. Ever since Gabriel's letter, I'd become acutely aware of every sound in the house, every shift, every whisper of movement. At 11:37 p.m., Lydia returned. I heard the front door open, softly, too softly, as if she didn't want to be heard. Her heels didn't click the way they normally did. Instead, they made a muffled thud, like she had taken them off in the entryway. Then came the voices. 2 of them, one female, one male. Lydia wasn't alone. My heart hammered as I slowly eased out of bed. I cracked the door open a sliver, just enough to catch a faint, distorted reflection in the hallway mirror below Lydia's silhouette and a man's tall frame, Victor Mallory. Even from the shadowed reflection, I recognized the stiff arrogance of his posture, the tilt of his head, the way he stood too close to Lydia, like he owned not just the room but her. I strained to listen. "Should have been done weeks ago," Victor whispered harshly. "Mallory doesn't like delays." "I told you," Lydia hissed back. "The paperwork takes time. Gabriel wasn't stupid. He hid things. He hid them from you," Victor snapped. "Not from me." My blood ran cold. I leaned in closer. "Besides," Lydia continued, softer now, "Margaret is becoming a problem." I froze. A problem. The word landed like a blade against my throat. There was a long pause. Then Victor said, voice low and oily, "Then we deal with her." "Deal with me?" I gripped the doorknob to keep myself steady. Seconds passed. Then Lydia exhaled sharply. "We need Aria," she said. "Mallory wants the inheritance pipeline clean. You know that." Inheritance, pipeline, Mallory. Every piece of Gabriel's warning snapped into focus. Aria wasn't a child to them. She was a lever, a means, a financial asset. My stomach churned so violently I thought I might collapse. Victor's voice lowered further, becoming indistinct. I caught only fragments. "Move soon. Street Bastien. No loose ends. The old woman knows too much." The old woman. They were talking about me. And no loose ends didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a plan. Archantide Commenda. For a moment, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then, very carefully, I shut the bedroom door and locked it. I pressed my back against it, trying to keep my breath steady. I had seconds, maybe minutes. I ran to my nightstand, slid open the drawer, and pulled out my phone. I texted Rowan. "Urgent. They're here." Lydia brought Victor, talking about Street Bastien. "Moving soon. No loose ends. Aria not safe. Need next steps now." No answer. I texted again. "Rowan, please. This is serious." Still nothing. My heart pounded. Rowan normally answered instantly. Something was wrong. Or he wasn't near his phone. Or a sound outside the room made me jump a soft creak of the staircase. Footsteps. Slow, measured, coming upstairs. I turned off the lamp and slid into bed beside Aria, pulling the covers up as if we'd been sleeping the whole time. I held her close. The footsteps stopped outside our door. A pause. Breathing. Someone listening. I clutched Aria tighter, praying my heartbeat wasn't loud enough to give us away. Then Lydia's voice floated through the wood, syrupy sweet. "Margaret, are you awake?" I stayed silent. A click. She tried the handle. Locked. Another moment of stillness. Then a long exhale. "Well," she said lightly. "Sleep tight. We'll talk tomorrow." Her footsteps retreated, but I didn't sleep. Not for a second. I waited, listening until I heard the click of the front door again, Victor leaving. Lydia's voice following him outside in hushed tones. A car starting, tires against pavement. The house finally fell quiet at 1:03 a.m. I eased out of bed and moved back to the hallway. Lydia's bedroom door was closed, light off. I crept downstairs, adrenaline surging, and checked the security feed on my tablet, the cameras Rowan had begged me to install. The footage loaded slowly, circle spinning. Then the screen flickered, and the playback appeared. At midnight, Lydia and Victor stood in the kitchen. Lydia held a folder. Victor held a USB drive. They both looked entirely too calm. Then, a moment that made my blood turn to ice. Victor turned toward the camera and smiled. A slow, deliberate smile, as if he knew, as if he wanted me to see. Then he reached up and placed his thumb over the lens. Static, cut feed. He didn't smash the camera. He didn't rip it out. He covered the lens for 3 seconds, long enough to send a message, then walked away. My hands trembled. This was no longer about suspicion, no longer about instinct, no longer about grief clouding judgment. This was a threat, a clear, calculated threat. I returned upstairs, locked the bedroom door again, and lay beside Aria, listening to the soft rise and fall of her breath. A war had begun. Gabriel had known it, and now, so did I. But one truth anchored me. I might be 62, I might be grieving, but I had survived loss, betrayal, years of hardship. I had studied the darkest depths of human behavior for decades. And Lydia had just made a fatal mistake. She underestimated me. By morning, Lydia had transformed into her usual polished self-silk blouse, diamond studs, an expression as smooth and unreadable as porcelain. You'd never guess she had spent the previous night plotting with a man whose smile could curdle blood. You'd never guess she'd tried my bedroom door. But I remembered every word, every threat, every terrifying implication. Aria, Lydia called brightly from the hallway. Sweetheart, get dressed. Mommy has exciting news. Aria clutched my sleeve, eyes wide. She didn't want to go anywhere near her mother. I smoothed her hair. Stay with me, darling. It's all right. Lydia appeared in the doorway. A forced smile stretched across her face. We're going on a trip, she announced. A very special one, just for Mommy and Aria. My stomach tightened painfully. Where? I asked, voice steady as stone. Lydia tilted her head, feigning innocence. Street Bastien. There it was, the island, the offshore haven Gabriel warned about in his letter. The seat of the Mallory Syndicate's financial empire. And Lydia wanted to take Aria there. I thought you said it wasn't safe, I said quietly. Lydia blinked. Safe? When did I say that? Street Bastien is paradise, and Aria deserves a fresh start. Fresh start. Her favorite term for erasing witnesses. She stepped closer to Aria. We'll leave Friday morning. I've already arranged everything. I nearly choked. Friday? That's in 2 days. Lydia clasped her hands lightly. Exactly. No need to drag things out. Children cope better with sudden transitions. Transitions. The same word she'd used when she suggested moving out. The same word she used when she wanted control. I forced myself to stay calm. Aria has school. She can catch up later. She has therapy. She won't need therapy once she's away from all. Lydia waved vaguely around the house. This suffocating grief energy. My jaw clenched. And her stability? Her routine? Her comfort? Margaret. Lydia sighed as though I were the unreasonable one. You of all people should know children adjust. What they need most is a mother with a clear head. And I need this trip. For both of us. I opened my mouth, but Aria spoke first. Her voice trembling. I don't want to go. Lydia bent down, her voice turning far too sweet. Baby, you'll love it. There's a beach, and mango ice cream, and mango ice cream, Aria whispered. Daddy said Street Bastien doesn't even have dairy imports. Lydia froze. Only for a second, but enough. Aria looked up at me, confused. Grandma, why did Mommy lie? Lydia straightened, eyes flashing. Aria North, go to your room. Now. I stepped between them, voice calm but firm. She doesn't need to go anywhere. She said she doesn't want to go to Street Bastien. You need to respect that. Lydia stared at me, mask slipping inch by inch. I don't need to respect anything, she hissed. She is my daughter, my blood. You have no rights here, but Gabriel gave them to me. I said softly, her face twisted. That will is a joke, a delusion drafted by a stressed, paranoid man who wasn't thinking clearly. A deep, protective fury rose inside me. You and I both know Gabriel was not paranoid, I said. He saw something dangerous. Lydia took a step closer, and for the first time, the veneer of elegance peeled away, revealing a darker, harder woman beneath. You think you're the only one he confided in? She whispered. You think you're the only one he left messages for? I blinked. Messages. Plural. Lydia smirked. That's right. You're not as special as you think. But her eyes betrayed something fear, a flicker of panic. She was lying, bluffing, trying to shake me. I will take my daughter, Lydia continued. Don't make this harder. I took a breath, slow, steady. Lydia, I said, if you try to remove Aria from the country without court authorization, that is parental abduction. Her face tightened just briefly, but noticeably. She knew. She knew the law. She knew what she was planning was illegal, and she didn't care. She turned sharply, grabbed her purse, and marched toward the door. I'm going to finalize our travel arrangements, she snapped. Aria stays here today. I don't trust myself to look at her while you're poisoning her against me. The door slammed, hard. Aria jumped, then burst into tears. I pulled her into my arms. It's okay, I murmured, rocking her gently. You're safe. But inside, my mind raced. If Lydia truly intended to take Aria to Street Bastien, she would move fast. She would bypass legal channels. She would do whatever it took. I needed help. Now, I grabbed my phone and called Rowan again. Straight to voicemail. Again. Straight to voicemail. Fear knotted in my stomach. Where was he? I paced the kitchen, trying to steady my breathing, when Aria tugged at my hand. Grandma? Yes, sweetheart? She pointed to the front door. Look. A white envelope lay on the mat, slid under the door. No postage. No return address. Just one word written on the front. Soon. My blood froze. Grandma, what does that mean? I swallowed hard. It means, I said, closing the door and locking it twice, that Mommy isn't the only one watching us. Aria's hand tightened around mine. Grandma, are we in trouble? I knelt and looked into her trembling eyes. No, I said. But someone wants us to be. I stood up, my voice turning steel. But they have no idea who they're dealing with. Something had shifted inside me, something fierce and unwavering. I wasn't just a grieving mother anymore. I wasn't just a grandmother protecting a child. I was a woman with nothing left to lose, and that made me dangerous. By afternoon, the house no longer felt like a home. It felt like a trap. Every window seemed like an entry point. Every creak sounded like a warning. Every shadow felt watched. And the envelope soon sat on the kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. I needed proof. Documentation. Evidence Lydia couldn't twist or erase. Rowan still wasn't answering his phone, and that terrified me more than the threats. Rowan was dependable, steady to a fault. If he wasn't responding, something was wrong. Very wrong. I took Aria to her room and handed her a box of watercolors. Paint something for me, sweetheart, I said as evenly as I could. I need to handle something downstairs. She nodded, though worry lingered in her eyes. She was too perceptive, just like her father. I descended the stairs as quietly as possible, scanning the walls, the corners, the spaces between furniture. I hated that I'd become like this, jumping at shadows, studying silence like it was a crime scene. But instincts save lives. I opened the hallway closet where I'd hidden the small tablet connected to the indoor security cameras Rowan insisted I install. I tapped the screen. A timeline appeared. Motion-triggered recordings. I clicked the first file from last night. Lydia entering through the back door at 11:37 p.m. Eyes alert, hair slightly windblown, lipstick smudged. A look too wild to be grief. Then Victor followed. Tall, sharp, wearing a dark overcoat. His expression flat, predatory, like he was casing the house. I swallowed hard, hitting play. Video feed. 11:39 p.m. Lydia paced the kitchen, running her hands through her hair. Victor, she's getting suspicious. She's always watching, always asking questions. She's not stupid. Victor leaned against the counter, unbothered. She's an old woman, Lydia. She can't stop anything. Old woman. The words hit like a slap. Lydia crossed her arms. She's tougher than she looks. Gabriel always said she can read people like textbooks, and she doesn't trust me anymore. Victor's tone cooled. You should have taken care of this months ago. My breath hitched. Taken care of what? Lydia paced faster. I couldn't until the will was read. If she got everything, then I needed time to. She snapped her mouth shut. Victor pushed off the counter. And the kid? When are you moving her? Kid. Not Aria. Kid. Like she was cargo. I clenched my jaw. Lydia sighed dramatically. Friday. Flights are arranged. Once we're on the island, Mallory can fast-track the paperwork. Victor smirked. Good. He wants both of you there. Loose ends make him nervous. Loose ends again. Always those two words. Then something happened that made the room feel colder, like air had been sucked from the walls. Victor turned toward the invisible camera, his eyes locked dead center, directly into the lens. He smiled, a slow, deliberate, chilling smile. Then he reached up and covered it with his thumb, exactly the moment I saw in real time last night. The feed cut to static. He knew the cameras were there. He wanted me to see him. He wanted me afraid. Well, he had succeeded in one, but not the other. I tapped another clip. Video feed, morning. Lydia in the kitchen alone, hair up in a tight bun. She poured a glass of wine at 8 a.m. 8 a.m. She didn't even bother with coffee. She drank half the glass in one tilt of her head, then slammed it down, muttering, "Just 2 more days, just 2. And then the old bat is gone." My breath caught. She grabbed her phone, pacing. "No, Victor, I can't just make her disappear. Not yet. Not until Aria and I are in Street Bastien." A pause. "No, we don't need to scare the kid. She's fragile enough as it is." Another pause. Then Lydia snapped. "Because once we're settled, she'll forget the woman anyway. Children always forget. They adapt." I had to sit down. Everything Gabriel wrote, everything he feared, it was all true. Lydia wasn't just dangerous, she was unhinged. And Victor? Victor was something worse, cold, calculated, and absolutely confident that nothing could stop him. A soft sound drifted from upstairs. Aria humming a tune Gabriel used to whistle when he cooked breakfast. It filled me with equal parts love and terror. I returned the tablet to the closet and closed the door quietly, forcing myself to think clearly. I needed help. Reinforcements. Someone trustworthy. But Rowan still wasn't answering. I considered calling the police, but what would I say? My daughter-in-law is planning to abduct my granddaughter with a criminal syndicate. They'd dismiss me as a hysterical, grieving woman. And Lydia, with her clean records, social connections, perfect curated image, she'd flip the narrative effortlessly. I exhaled sharply. No. I needed a plan as strategic as Gabriel's letter demanded. When I returned upstairs, Aria had finished painting. On the paper was a house, our house, with a small figure standing at the door. "Who's that?" I asked softly. Aria shrugged. "A man. I see him sometimes. Outside." My chest tightened painfully. "What does he look like?" She chewed her lip. "Tall, dark coat. He doesn't move much." Victor had been watching our house." I crouched beside her. "Aria, sweetheart, listen to me. If you ever see him again, you come straight to me. Understand?" She nodded. "Is he bad?" I hesitated. "No," I said slowly. "But he's not good." She leaned against me, whispering, "Daddy said." Some people smile with their teeth but not their hearts. Tears pricked my eyes. "Yes," I whispered. He was right. As I tucked the painting away, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You have 48 hours." I stared at the message, fingers trembling. Then another message came. "Don't make this difficult." And a final one. "We only need the girl." The room spun. I steadied myself against the wall. That was the moment everything became brutally, terrifyingly clear. This wasn't about inheritance. This wasn't about Lydia wanting a new life. This wasn't about custody battles. This was a targeted acquisition, a coordinated extraction, a kidnapping disguised as motherhood. And I only had 48 hours to stop it. 48 hours. That was all the text had given me. 2 days before Lydia and Victor would try to take Aria, before they vanished into Street Bastien, into the hands of the Mallory syndicate, before the law or anyone else could reach them. I had to move. Fast, quietly, precisely. Panic was a luxury. I didn't have time for it. By mid-morning, I had made 5 calls. 4 went unanswered. One was picked up on the 3rd ring, Dr. Mira Ellingsworth, Aria's therapist. "I need to see you," I said, voice tight. "Is this about Aria?" Mira asked gently. "No. It's about her mother." There was a moment of silence on the other end. "Come in," she said. "Now." The great mild on-pretension. I drove to Mira's office with Aria in the back seat, coloring quietly, unaware she was the reason a war was about to be declared. Every stop sign, every car behind us, every pedestrian felt like a threat. I walked in clutching my bag as if it contained explosives, which, in a sense, it did. Evidence, footage, Gabriel's letter. Mira ushered us into her office with immediate concern. "Margaret, you look pale. Sit down." "No," I said. I need you to listen first. And I told her everything. In careful, measured sentences, every detail I needed documented, every word that could protect Aria in court. When I finished, Mira exhaled slowly. This is alarming, deeply alarming. Can you help me? I asked. Legally? I mean, I know you can't take sides, but she nodded. I'm obligated to file a welfare report. What you've described fits the criteria, especially given Aria's stated fear and Lydia's behavior. My shoulders sagged with relief. A mandatory therapist report had weight. It wasn't just a grandmother's concerns anymore. But Margaret, she added gently. You need a family lawyer immediately. I swallowed hard. I've been calling Rowan. He hasn't answered since last night. Mira frowned. That's unusual. It's very unusual. She tapped her pen. There's someone else. A colleague of Rowan's. A custody specialist. Her name is Dana Hollis. I'll get you in with her today. My heartbeat steadied. Finally, a lifeline. And Margaret? Mira said softly as I gathered Aria's things. Document everything. Every word Lydia says. Every move she makes. I nodded. I already am. I laughed in 20. Dana Hollis's office sat on the second floor of a brick townhouse overlooking Haldenport's Riverwalk. It was cozy, warm, with shelves full of legal books and a picture of her children beside her laptop. She looked up as we entered and gave me a firm, assessing nod. I've been briefed. You need emergency action. Yes, I said. I only have 48 hours. Dana gestured for me to sit. Show me the footage. I opened the tablet. The moment Victor looked at the camera, the moment Lydia said, the old bat, the moment they discussed Street Bastien, the threats, the timing, Dana didn't blink once. This, she said, is not normal marital conflict. This is pre-abduction planning. I swallowed. I thought so. And in Massachusetts family law, she continued, pre-abduction behavior is grounds for immediate protective intervention. I stared at her. You mean? Yes, she said. We can file an emergency custody petition. Today. A tremor ran through me. Will we win? I whispered. Dana leaned forward. Do you want the honest answer? Yes. She folded her hands. With the evidence you just showed me. Gabriel's letter. Aria's statements. Lydia's instability. And a credible threat of international abduction. Then she said the words I'd been desperate and terrified to hear. Yes. You'll win. Relief punched through me so violently I almost cried. Dana continued. But we need one more thing. Aria must be evaluated today by a court-approved psychologist. It will be fast, gentle, nothing invasive, just enough to document fear, instability, and attachment. I nodded, throat tight. Whatever it takes. Dana looked at Aria, who sat coloring in the corner. And keep her with you, at all times. Don't let Lydia take her anywhere, not even for ice cream. I won't, I said instantly. Not for a second. And Margaret. Dana lowered her voice. If Lydia shows up unexpectedly, do not engage. Call me, call the police if needed. You are in potential danger. A chill ran down my spine. I know. And one last thing, she added. Has Lydia ever been violent? I thought back. The slamming doors, the tightening jaw, the coldness, the flashes of rage. She hasn't hit anyone, I said slowly. But she has a dangerous way of smiling. Dana's gaze sharpened. A dangerous smile can still be a threat. To hive low. 3 hours later, everything was in motion. Aria passed the psychological evaluation with heartbreaking clarity. Anxiety, fear, disrupted sleep, emotional withdrawal, all linked to Lydia's unpredictable behavior. Dana filed the emergency petition with the court. A hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Lydia had no idea. Not yet. But as we returned home, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You can't win. Then a second message. She's ours. I stopped walking. The world tilted for a second. But instead of fear, something else rose inside me. Steel. Resolute, unbreakable steel. I replied, come for her, and you'll see exactly who I am. Another message came instantly. We already know. Then, tick, tock. Aria tugged my hand. Grandma, are we going to be okay? I knelt, pulled her close, and kissed her forehead. Yes, I whispered, voice steady as iron. We are, because I'm going to protect you with everything I have. Inside, my resolve hardened. Lydia wanted a war. Victor wanted intimidation. Mallory wanted control. They were about to learn something important. A mother protects her child. But a grandmother? A grandmother protects with the fury of every generation that came before her. And I was done being afraid. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not temperature, cold, emotional cold. A sterile, humming kind of silence that made every breath feel too loud. I sat at the petitioner's table with Aria beside me, her small hand wrapped in both of mine. Dana Hollis stood tall and calm at my right, a quiet force of assurance. Across the aisle, Lydia entered like she was walking onto a runway. Black suit, perfect hair, dark sunglasses indoors because grief, no doubt, had reddened her eyes. But when she removed them, her eyes were clear, sharp, calculated. She scanned the room slowly, saw Dana, saw me, saw Aria. Then she smiled, a thin, venomous smile that told me she already believed she had won. And she wasn't alone. Behind her sat Victor Mallory, flanked by two men in tailored suits, their expressions carved from stone. To the untrained eye, they looked like corporate advisors, but I'd spent decades studying predatory personalities. These men were not advisors, they were wolves. Victor caught my gaze, and just like he did with the camera, smiled. A deliberate, taunting curl of his lips. Dana leaned over. "Don't look at him. He thrives on intimidation." But I kept staring until Victor's smile faltered. 1 point for me. At precisely 9 a.m., Judge Helen Griswold entered the courtroom. Stern, composed, late 50s, with the kind of presence that commanded obedience simply by existing. "All rise." We did. "Be seated." We did. Judge Griswold adjusted her glasses and looked down at the file before her. "This is an emergency custody petition filed by Mrs. Margaret North regarding minor child Aria North. We will hear arguments from petitioner's counsel first." Dana rose smoothly, projecting both warmth and relentless competence. "Your Honor, we are seeking immediate temporary custody due to credible evidence of imminent international abduction by the respondent, Lydia Harrington North." A ripple of murmurs. Griswold lifted an eyebrow. "International abduction is a serious allegation, Miss Hollis." "Yes, Your Honor," Dana replied. "And one we do not make lightly." She clicked a remote. A screen slid down along the wall. Exhibit A, surveillance footage from the petitioner's home. I felt Lydia sit straighter. The video began to play. Victor, entering through the back door. Lydia pacing. Their conversation, every whispered threat captured. The plans for Street Bastien. The exact Friday departure. The phrase, "loose ends make him nervous." Victor turning to the camera. That smile. Even Judge Griswold flinched. Lydia's attorney, a slick man named Charles Fenton, leapt up. "Your Honor, this invasion of privacy." "Sit down, Mr. Fenton," Judge Griswold barked. And he did. Dana continued calmly. Exhibit B, a mandatory prompting report from licensed child psychologist Dr. Mira Ellingsworth, documenting signs of emotional distress, fear of the respondent, and strong attachment to the petitioner. Griswold scanned the report with growing concern. Exhibit C, a sworn statement from the petitioner documenting erratic behavior, attempts to relocate child without notice, and unsolicited threats from unknown numbers. Dana slid the phone records into evidence. And finally, Exhibit D, the last written statement from the deceased father, Gabriel North, detailing his concerns and explicitly naming his mother as Aria's intended protector. Fenton sprang up again. "Your Honor, that letter is pure manipulation." Judge Griswold slammed her gavel. "Is that what you think of a dead man's voice? Sit down." A hush fell over the courtroom. Then it was Lydia's turn. Fenton stood, smoothing his tie. "Your Honor, my client is the biological mother of this child. Mrs. North is attempting to weaponize grief and paranoia to steal the child from her rightful parent." "Wrong," Dana murmured under her breath. "Try again." Fenton continued. "Yes, my client considered a vacation, a healing retreat after losing her husband. And yes, she consulted a friend, Mr. Mallory, about connections in Street Bastien. But this was not an abduction. It was an opportunity for a mother to rebuild." Judge Griswold blinked slowly. "Rebuild," she repeated. "Yes, Your Honor. My client has struggled. She has been unfairly judged. And now she stands here publicly crucified for wanting to give her child peace." Lydia dabbed her eyes. Fake tears. Perfect timing. Mrs. North, the judge said. Do you wish to speak? Lydia rose gracefully. Your Honor, she said softly. I've been grieving. I've been alone. Margaret has always judged me. She thinks I'm not good enough. She thinks I can't raise my own daughter. But Aria is my blood. I carried her. I loved her father. I deserve to raise my child. She clasped her hands delicately. And I would never hurt her. Never. The courtroom murmured. Even some spectators seemed moved. But I wasn't fooled. Judge Griswold looked between us, back and forth, weighing, thinking, measuring. Finally, she said, I have questions for Aria. My breath caught. Aria's eyes widened. Dana squeezed my hand discreetly. It will be in chambers, she whispered. Just the judge and a child advocate. She'll be safe. Aria was escorted away, holding her plush rabbit, and I broke. My hands shook uncontrollably. Dana whispered, This is good. Judges rely heavily on the child's voice. But inside me, a grandmother's heart was screaming. Apported vials. 27 minutes later, Aria returned to the courtroom, a small but steady hand slipping into mine. She whispered, I told the truth. I kissed her forehead. Judge Griswold entered moments later. Everyone stood. Be seated. We sat. She lifted the file before her. In my 29 years on the bench, she began, I have seen many custody disputes, some petty, some heartbreaking, and some, her eyes moved to Lydia, deeply concerning. Lydia stiffened. The judge continued, after reviewing all evidence, including the minor child's testimony, a pause, a breath. I find that there is credible risk of attempted international parental abduction. The room exploded with murmurs. Lydia gasped. Victor shot to his feet. Judge Griswold slammed her gavel. Order. Silence. My ruling is as follows. Temporary full custody of Aria North is granted to the petitioner, Mrs. Margaret North, effective immediately. The respondent, Lydia Harrington North, shall have supervised visitation only. No travel permitted. No overnights. No exceptions. Lydia's face contorted rage, disbelief, humiliation, twisting together into something animalistic. This isn't over, she hissed, standing so abruptly her chair screeched. You can't do this to me. Yes, Judge Griswold said coolly. I can, and I have. Victor shoved past the table, glaring holes through me. Dana placed a protective hand on my arm. As Lydia was restrained by court officers, she screamed, Margaret, you ruined everything. But she was wrong. I hadn't ruined anything. I had just saved everything. Aria pressed her face into my side as the courtroom emptied. Grandma, can we go home now? She whispered. Yes, I said softly, wrapping my arms around her. We're going home. But deep inside, I knew this was only phase 1. Lydia and Victor wouldn't accept defeat. They would regroup. They would retaliate. They would escalate. But so would I. And now, for the first time, the law was on my side. The victory in court should have felt like oxygen, a release, a lifeline. Instead, it felt like lighting a match inside a room filled with gasoline. Because the moment Lydia lost custody, she stopped pretending to be human. And the world around us began to shift quietly, subtly, dangerously. The bladed forder, forens very forder, the headaday on the blader forder, and the blader forder, and the headaday on the blader today on the devilating and round. For 48 hours after the hearing, Lydia was silent. No visits, no calls, no messages. Not even a single pathetic performance of maternal grief. It should have comforted me. But instead, dread pooled in my stomach like cold water. Predators don't vanish. They lurk. And when they return, they bite. On the third night, the storm finally broke. To that is provisions, and to that is Bragley of Onadash. It happened at 9:42 p.m. Aria had just drifted to sleep in my arms while we watched an old cartoon Gabriel used to love as a child. Her breathing was soft, heavy, peaceful. Nothing like the trembling nightmares she'd had for weeks. I carried her upstairs, tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and stepped quietly into the hallway. Just in time to hear the downstairs window shatter. My heart seized. I grabbed my phone, thumb hovering over 911, when I heard it. Aria. Lydia's voice, but not her voice. Not the controlled, sugary tone she weaponized. This voice was jagged, feral, trembling with fury. She was inside the house. My blood turned to ice. I rushed into Aria's room and locked the door. Her eyes fluttered open. "Grandma?" she whispered. "Shh," I said, pressing a finger to my lips. "Stay quiet, sweetheart. Stay right here." Downstairs, something crashed glass, a picture frame, furniture. Then Lydia's voice again, louder. "Where is she? Where is my daughter?" I held Aria against me, feeling her little heart hammering. A loud bang echoed through the hallway, Lydia slamming doors open one by one, searching. "Aria, Mommy just wants to talk." No mother in the world would believe that tone meant talk. It was the voice of someone unraveling, someone dangerous. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. I grabbed the dresser and quietly pushed it against the door, bracing the frame with my shoulder. Lydia's footsteps stopped outside the room. A long silence. Then, tap, 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 on the door, followed by a soft, chilling whisper. "Margaret, open this door." My throat tightened. She jiggled the knob, then slammed her palm against it. "Open this door right now!" Aria whimpered quietly into my sweater. I covered her mouth gently, tears burning my eyes. "Quiet, darling. I'm here." Lydia's breathing turned sharp and uneven, like she was speaking through clenched teeth. "You can't keep her from me. I'm her mother." Another violent slam shook the door, then another, and another. The wood cracked. She was trying to break it down. I shoved harder against the dresser. My knee braced against the bed frame, every muscle trembling. "Aria!" Lydia screamed through the crack in the wood. "Baby, open the door! It's me! Mommy!" Her voice changed suddenly, sweet, soft, sugary. "Sweetheart, I brought your favorite chocolates, remember? The ones with the gold wrappers, Mall." The voice instantly cut off. She stopped herself, but it was too late. She nearly said, "Mallory." Even in meltdown, she couldn't hide the truth. I pulled out my phone with shaking fingers. "Call." The dispatcher answered instantly. "My daughter-in-law has broken into my home," I whispered urgently. "My granddaughter is here. She's trying to break into our room. Please, send someone now." The dispatcher told me to stay on the line. Lydia slammed her fist against the door, then began kicking it. Each kick made the dresser jerk forward an inch. Each kick sent a shock through my bones. "Come out!" she shrieked. "Give her to me." I held the dresser with every ounce of strength I had left. Then, the sound of sirens. Close, very close. Lydia froze. For 3 long, tense seconds, the house went silent. Then I heard footsteps retreating. Down the stairs. Through the broken window, the sirens grew louder. Lights flashed through Aria's window. Relief didn't come. Not yet, because when police finally entered the house and swept the downstairs, they found nothing. Lydia was gone, vanished, like smoke dissipating from a flame. But they did find something else. A knife, on the kitchen floor, dropped in the chaos, its handle smeared with fingerprints. And beside it, a passport. Not Lydia's usual U.S. passport, a foreign one. Issued under a different name, Elise Marrow. The photo was Lydia. Younger, harsher, colder. A second life. A second identity. A woman Gabriel never knew. A woman I never imagined existed. Jess, Di, and Riven. The police asked questions, took statements, boarded the window, escorted us to a safe house for the night. Aria cried herself to sleep. I sat beside her, stroking her hair, whispering prayers I hadn't spoken in decades. I didn't sleep. Not a second. When dawn finally crept across the sky, the officer assigned to us delivered the next blow. "Ma'am, we have a problem. Lydia's car was found abandoned near the bridge outside Haldenport." "And Lydia?" I whispered. She wasn't inside. "And Victor Mallory?" I pressed. The officer exchanged a look with his partner. He wasn't inside either. A sickening dread filled my stomach. "Ma'am," the officer continued softly. "Traffic cameras show the two of them getting into another vehicle moments later. A black sedan. No plates. Where are they now?" I asked, though I already feared the answer. "We don't know." He hesitated. "But we believe they're heading toward the coast. Toward the private docks, toward the syndicate's channel, toward the one place Lydia still thought she could win. Street Bastien. Provider sign dollars down." When the officers left, Dana called me immediately. I heard what happened. "Margaret, listen to me carefully." "Yes," I said, gripping the phone tight. "Lydia isn't running from the law. She's running to someone. And she's not done." I closed my eyes. "I know." "Then prepare yourself," Dana said. Because the next move she makes won't be in shadows. My breath caught. What do you mean? Dana's voice was a quiet warning. She's desperate now. Cornered. Unhinged. And women like her, women who believe they've lost everything, will do anything to regain control. My hand tightened around Aria's sleeping form. She's coming, I whispered. Yes, Dana said gravely. And she won't stop. Action day, then why? As the line went dead, a single truth settled into my bones with terrifying clarity. Last night was not Lydia's breaking point. It was only her beginning. The safe house was supposed to be secure. A small, nondescript craftsman-style home tucked between two larger properties, owned by a retired police chief who occasionally lent it to colleagues for cases like mine. The windows had reinforced locks, the doors had steel cores, the security system was freshly updated. But safety isn't just walls and locks. Safety is distance from those who want to hurt you. And Lydia was closing that distance faster than any of us anticipated. These governed Eilers and 45 day. The first sign came at 6:12 a.m. Aria woke up crying loud, sharp sobs that shook her tiny frame. "Grandma! Grandma!" she gasped. "Mommy was in my dream." I pulled her into my arms. "It was just a nightmare, sweetheart. You're safe." "No." She shook her head, panicked. "She told me she's coming to get me. She said she found us." A chill slipped down my spine. Children don't invent threats they can't understand. They echo what they feel, and Aria felt hunted. "We have de way have anything, have de $40 on the pawnus." By noon, the second sign appeared. A black car idled across the street. Not parked, just waiting. Engine running. An officer from the safe house detail went to check. The car sped off. No plates. They didn't come back. But the message was clear. Lydia knew where we were, or worse, Victor knew, and Victor didn't stalk. Victor tracked. I asked the officer assigned to us, Newton, if the syndicate had ways of finding safe houses. "Depends," he muttered, checking the locks for the third time. "Some of these guys have connections in law enforcement. Rare, but not impossible. We can move you tonight if needed." I nodded, chest tight. Tonight felt too far away. "I have the prashast, with cotton mitted in 9 day." That evening, after dinner, Aria was quieter than usual. She picked at her vegetables, eyes drifting too often toward the living room window. "Grandma," she whispered, "what if Mommy comes through the glass again?" I knelt beside her chair. "If anyone tries to come in, the officers will stop them. And I'm here. You're not alone, sweetheart." She nodded, but her shoulders remained rigid. When bedtime came, she asked if she could sleep in my room. "Yes," I said instantly. "Of course." She crawled into my bed, clinging to her stuffed rabbit, and fell asleep with her face pressed against my arm. I lay awake beside her, staring up at the ceiling in the faint safe house light, waiting, listening. That was when I heard it. A faint buzz. Then, a small metallic clink on the front porch. My heart dropped. I grabbed my phone and stepped into the hallway. Another buzz, another clink. Footsteps echoed outside. Newton opened the front door cautiously and froze. I rushed to his side. On the porch lay two objects, two symbols, a dead phone, smashed, and a child's bracelet. Aria's bracelet, the one she lost the night Lydia broke into the house. But Lydia hadn't taken it. Victor had. Newton swore under his breath. "We're moving you," he said. "Right now." He called his partner. "Backup, transport." But while he radioed in reports, while boots pounded the pavement outside, while sirens approached in the distance, I walked back into the house and found Aria standing silently at the top of the stairs, trembling. "Grandma," she whispered. "Mommy was here." I swallowed. "Why do you say that, sweetheart?" She pointed to the living room. I followed her gaze. There, taped to the inside of the glass door, on our side of the door, was a piece of paper. 4 words, written in thick, slanted ink. "I'm not done yet." My entire body went cold. She had been inside the safe house. While officers patrolled outside, while alarms were armed, while we slept, Lydia had slipped in, left the bracelet, left the note, then vanished. The syndicate wasn't guessing our location. The syndicate had an inside source, and Lydia knew it. Officer Newton grabbed the note, swearing under his breath. "This wasn't here 10 minutes ago," he muttered. "How the hell?" I knew exactly how. Because Lydia had once pulled strings to get Gabriel out of a traffic case with shocking ease. Because Victor had openly bragged at a fundraiser about friends in high places. Because Mallory had bankrolled half of Haldenport's political machine. We were not hiding from amateurs. We were hiding from an organization with tentacles in every shadow of the city. And they were tightening. They want to. We were rushed into a transport vehicle. Newton drove, lights off, choosing side streets and dark routes. I held Aria close, her small body trembling against mine. At a stoplight, Newton frowned at the rearview mirror. We're being followed. A black SUV, 2 cars back, no plates. Newton pressed harder on the gas. The SUV matched speed. Hold on. The car jerked forward, then swerved sharply into a side alley. Aria buried her face in my chest, shaking. Newton took turn after turn until the SUV finally disappeared in the fog. We reached a second safe location, a temporary police holding apartment, and Newton immediately called his supervisor. But before reinforcements arrived, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. But I already knew who it was. Run all you want. Then, you're not saving her. A third message. You're just prolonging the end. My hands shook violently. You can't have her, I whispered through clenched teeth. Not now. Not ever. Then a fourth message arrived. A photo. Grainy. Dark. Taken from a distance. A woman in a black coat standing at the edge of a pier, holding something in her hand. Aria's stuffed rabbit. And the caption, tomorrow. I nearly dropped the phone. Grandma? Aria whispered. Yes, sweetheart? Why are you crying? I wiped my eyes quickly. I'm not crying. I lied. I'm thinking, because the truth was like a blade in my chest. Lydia wasn't running away anymore. She was drawing us closer, pulling us in, to the one place she knew we'd follow if she threatened Aria's life. Street. Bastien wasn't her plan. It was her trap. And tomorrow, she wanted us to walk right into it. Night in the temporary police safe apartment felt suffocating, like the walls themselves were listening. The air was too still, the lights too bright, the silence too heavy. Aria fell asleep in my lap after crying herself dry, her little fists clenched around what remained of her stuffed rabbit, just an ear, torn away long ago but kept for comfort. I wrapped my arms around her, my heart beating too fast, too loud. Fear does that. It strips you of silence. Newton paced the living room, muttering into his phone. We need full protection detail. No, this isn't a typical custodial dispute, listen to me. This woman broke into a safe house. Yes, with a knife. Yes, and the syndicate might be involved. Yes, that syndicate. I tuned out the rest, because my phone buzzed again. Another message. Bring the girl to Pier 9 at dawn. Come alone. Then, if you involve police, we move the timeline. You know what that means. I shut my eyes. God help me. They wanted me separated, vulnerable, alone. This was no longer about custody, or money, or inheritance. This was leverage. Aria was leverage. And I was the only thing standing between her and a monster wearing her mother's face. Newton noticed my expression and stopped pacing. What is it? Did they send something? I showed him the screen. His jaw tightened. Damn it. He swore softly under his breath, then rubbed the bridge of his nose. Pier 9, he said. That's syndicate territory. No cops go there, not without backup in triple digits. I know. You're not actually considering going. I looked down at Aria, asleep in my arms, hair tousled and damp from tears. Newton, I whispered. If Victor wanted me dead, he'd have done it last night. This is about her. And Lydia isn't thinking rationally anymore. Newton shook his head violently. We need a tactical team. We need surveillance. We need... No, I cut in. If the syndicate senses cops, they'll vanish with her. Forever. And Aria... My voice cracked. Aria stirred, whimpering. I stroked her back gently until she settled again. Newton looked torn between protocol and instinct. You can't go alone, he said. They'll kill you. I held his gaze. No, they need me alive. For something. Lydia wouldn't risk scaring off her only bargaining chip. But Victor? Newton countered. He doesn't need you alive. You're a liability. Yes. Victor was a different creature entirely. A man who smiled at cameras before covering them. A man who appeared in dreams and nightmares with equal clarity. But Lydia would demand he keep me alive. At least long enough to play out her twisted endgame. Newton walked over to his bag, pulled out a small device, and placed it in my palm. A GPS tracker. I stared at it. "This won't stop them," he said. "But it'll help us find you. Keep it in your coat lining. Don't let them see it." My throat tightened. "Thank you." He hesitated, then added quietly, "Margaret, don't die." I managed a thin smile. "I'll do my best." With Grabbelnated hind. And I denied it high grounds to the precedent. At 4:53 a.m., before the sun rose, I slipped out of the safe apartment with Aria still asleep inside, heavily guarded. I left Newton a note: keep her safe, no matter what. He'd fight me, but he'd obey the order to protect the child rather than chase the grandmother. That was his nature. Mine was different. Oh, gown. I walked through Haldenport's fog-soaked streets, cold wind cutting through my coat. Pier 9 was a half-mile away, lit only by old sodium lamps flickering like dying candles. The ocean slapped against the docks with restless hands, as if warning me back. But I kept walking. Closer, closer, closer. A shadow shifted at the far end of the pier. Then another. A figure stepped forward. Not Lydia, not Victor, but someone I hadn't expected in 1,000 lifetimes. Rowan. Alive, but barely. His left eye bruised and swollen. Lip split. Hands zip-tied in front of him. "Margaret," he rasped. "Run." My knees nearly gave out. "Rowan, what have they done to you?" He shook his head fiercely. "They're using me to lure you, please, go." A slow clap echoed behind him, and then Victor Mallory stepped into view. "Bravo, Mrs. North," he smirked. "Didn't think you had the spine for heroics." He was dressed in a long charcoal coat, immaculate as always, not a hair out of place, cold eyes, shark smile, death masquerading as a gentleman. "Where is she?" I asked, voice steady despite the ice spreading through my limbs. Victor tilted his head mockingly. "Safe," he said. "For now." My stomach twisted. "What do you want?" "A trade," Victor replied. "You come with me, quietly, no police, no fuss." "And Aria?" He smiled. "She goes with Lydia to Street Bastien." It was the worst bargain imaginable. "No," I said instantly. "Never." Victor shrugged lightly. "Then this ends differently." He snapped his fingers. Two men dragged another figure forward, and the world stopped. Lydia. But not the Lydia who testified in court. Not the Lydia who played the grieving widow. This Lydia was hollow-cheeked, hair disheveled, eyes wild with a feverish light. She held Aria's stuffed rabbit in her hand loosely, like she didn't even realize she was clutching it. "Where is my daughter?" she screamed at me. "You took her." "Give her back." Victor rested a hand on her shoulder. She flinched. He squeezed. She stilled. Just like that, as if she were conditioned, controlled. His puppet. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just betrayal. This was brainwashing. Gabriel had tried to tell me. I hadn't listened in time. Victor turned back to me. "You come with us, Margaret. And Lydia gets her daughter." "No," I whispered. "Aria will never be safe with her." Lydia lunged toward me, but Victor held her back easily. "You don't get to decide what's safe," Lydia shrieked. "She's mine." "No," I said softly. "She's not." Victor laughed once, short, cruel, amused. "Mrs. North, this isn't a debate. It's a transaction." I took a step forward. "Then here's my counteroffer." Victor smirked. "Do tell." I lifted my chin. "You take me. Alive. Cooperative. No police interference." He paused. "And?" he asked carefully. "And Aria stays where she is. Protected, guarded, off limits." Victor exchanged a look with his men. Then, "Why," he asked with quiet curiosity, "would I accept that?" "Because you don't need Aria," I said. "Not really. You need leverage. You need silence. You need compliance. And you need a woman who understands how to keep her mouth shut." Victor's smile returned slowly. "You're offering yourself," he said, "in exchange for the child." "Yes." A long silence followed. Wind, waves, the faint clang of a loose metal chain. Then Victor spoke again. "Fine." Lydia exploded. "No, no, I want her. She's mine." Victor shoved her back so hard she collapsed to her knees. "She is a liability," he spat. "You couldn't control her. You lost in court. You failed." Lydia sobbed, a guttural, broken sound. Victor faced me again. "We accept your trade, Mrs. North. You come with us now." I nodded once, slow, steady. "And Aria stays with Newton, forever. If anything happens to her, I disappear from your grasp entirely." Victor's eyes gleamed with interest. You drive a hard bargain for an old woman. I met his gaze without blinking. I'm not bargaining. I'm ensuring she lives. He lifted a hand. Two men stepped forward. One grabbed Rowan. The other approached me. I raised a hand. Wait. Victor paused. Yes. I stepped closer to him, so close I could see the faintest scar beneath his eye. And I whispered, if you ever come near Aria again, I will kill you. This time, Victor didn't smile, not even a twitch. Instead, he stepped back slightly, as if I were a threat, as if he believed me. He nodded once. Come, Mrs. North. I walked forward, toward the men, toward the car, toward the end of the pier. Rowan cried out, Margaret, no, don't do it. But I didn't stop, because mothers protect their children. But grandmothers? Grandmothers walk willingly into hell, if it means the child survives. As the car door closed behind me, sealing my fate, one final thought burned in my mind like fire. Aria is safe, for now. But this story isn't finished. Not until I end the syndicate. Not until I bring Lydia to justice. Not until I expose Victor Mallory for what he truly is. And I will. Even if it costs me everything. The engine hummed low as the black sedan pulled away from Pier 9. The smell of brine fading behind us, replaced by leather, cold air, and the iron taste of fear. I sat between two syndicate men, silent shadows with shoulders like carved granite, my wrists zip-tied, my mind razor-sharp. Victor sat in the front passenger seat, profile perfectly still, like a sculpture carved from ice. His reflection in the windshield looked inhuman, too calm, too controlled, too certain that he had already won. But I hadn't surrendered. I'd bargained. And bargains, in my world, were not endings. They were openings. The car rolled through Haldenport's industrial district. Abandoned warehouses, rusted freight containers, flickering streetlights. I memorized each turn, each sign, each landmark, as if they were stepping stones back to Aria. I would come back for her. I would always come back for her. Victor finally spoke without turning. You realize your sacrifice is unnecessary. The girl would have adjusted. Adjusted to what? A criminal empire? I shot back. He chuckled softly, not kindly. No, Mrs. North. To us, shaping her into someone useful. And Lydia? I asked. What's her usefulness? Victor shrugged lightly. Extinguished. The word punched the breath from my lungs. You're lying. A pause. Then, she was never the goal, only a vessel. The rage that swept through me was volcanic, so sudden, so blinding I had to bite my tongue to keep from lunging at him. You used her, I whispered. She wanted to be used, Victor replied calmly. Everyone we recruit does. Power attracts the desperate. Power? I spat. You call this power? Kidnapping? Breaking into homes? Threatening children? Finally, Victor turned. His eyes were bottomless. We don't threaten children, Margaret. We claim assets. My stomach churned. Aria. She's an asset to you? Her father hid something, he said. Something valuable. Something he refused to turn over. A secret worth more than any child's life. My heart stuttered. What secret? Victor smiled. That's what you're going to tell us. The car fell into silence, the kind that feels padded with dynamite. I stared straight forward, refusing to let my voice tremble. I don't know anything. Yes, Victor said softly. You do. Gabriel trusted you with everything he feared, everything he hid, everything he protected. I shut my eyes briefly. Gabriel's last letter flashed behind my eyelids. There are things I discovered that I can't put in writing. If something happens to me, they will come for the child. My mouth went dry. Whatever Gabriel hid, Victor said, leaning an arm casually over the seat. We will extract it, one way or another. The way he said extract made my skin crawl. The car turned sharply, descending into a long, dark tunnel beneath Haldenport, one of the old Prohibition-era passages families like Victor's repurposed into concrete mazes. Of course he'd bring me below the city, below law, below help, below hope. But hope didn't need light to exist. It needed strategy. And I still had one card Victor didn't know I carried. Newton's GPS tracker, small as a pill tucked into the seam of my coat. As long as the battery held, they would know exactly where I was taken. I only had to stay alive long enough for them to find me. But Victor Mallory didn't intend to make that easy. The car came to a stop in a dim underground chamber, bare cement walls, chained lamps, a steel door like the mouth of a bunker. The syndicate's beating heart. Victor stepped out and motioned for his men to drag me. "Mrs. North," he said with a mock bow, "welcome to our little sanctuary. I hope you appreciate what your grandson's father died trying to keep from us." "He died because he trusted the wrong person," I snapped. Victor smiled thinly. "Indeed, he trusted you." My blood iced. "That's why you're here. Gabriel knew too much, and he left too much with you." Two men hauled me forward, zip ties biting into my wrists. Victor led the way through a steel door that groaned open, revealing a narrow corridor lined with old brick, the bones of Haldenport's criminal past. "This used to be a speakeasy," Victor said conversationally. "Now it's an extraction site." Extraction, again, a word that meant torture in the syndicate's mouth. My breath wavered, but only for a moment, because I wasn't alone. Somewhere above ground, Newton was already responding to my tracker. Somewhere in the city, officers were gearing up. Somewhere safe, Aria was sleeping, protected by a man who refused to leave her side. All I needed to do was survive. Victor stopped in front of a heavy iron door. "Before we begin," he said softly, "I want to offer you something." "A mercy killing?" I muttered. "A chance to spare yourself unnecessary suffering." He stepped closer, his cologne sharp and metallic. "Tell me where Gabriel hid the ledger." My mind raced. Ledger. That word wasn't in Gabriel's letter. "What ledger?" I whispered. Victor leaned in. "The black ledger of Haldenport." He breathed into my ear. "Dates, names, transfers, every politician we bought, every cop we own, every man we made disappear." A shiver raced through me. So that was it. Gabriel found proof that could burn the city clean. "And you think he gave it to me?" I forced a laugh. Why would he trust his mother with something that dangerous? Victor smiled. "Because mothers don't betray." He paused. "But grandmothers? That remains to be seen." The door slammed open. The room was silent, cold. A steel chair bolted to the floor. A single hanging bulb, and a table filled with tools I refused to let my eyes linger on. One of the men pushed me inside. Victor stood in the doorway. "This is your last chance, Margaret. Tell me where the ledger is." I raised my chin. "I don't know." I lied. He studied me, then nodded once. "Let's begin." The door clanged shut like a final verdict. I sat alone in the chair, breathing slow, calculating, preparing. Because this wasn't the end, it was the turning point. I wasn't here to die. I was here to buy time, to mislead, to endure, and most of all, to give Newton enough minutes to find this place, because a grandmother will bleed, break, crawl through hell itself before she lets a monster take her child. The first thing they did was turn off the lights. Not all the way, just enough so I could barely see the outline of the steel chair, the stale concrete walls, the glint of metal on the table beside me. Victor knew darkness didn't just hide things. It warped them. He wanted my mind to fill in the blanks. He had no idea I'd been preparing for this moment since the night Gabriel died. I breathed slowly, evenly, the way Gabriel taught Aria to breathe when she was afraid. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 6, slowing the pulse, sharpening the thoughts. I needed to think. I needed to stall. I needed that tracker to be found. Victor stepped into the room at last, the dim bulb above him flickering as if even the light feared him. "Ready?" he asked pleasantly, as if this were a job interview, not an interrogation. "I'm too old for your theatrics," I said dryly. "Get on with it." One of his men barked a laugh. Victor didn't. "You know," he said, circling me like a predator, "Gabriel fought for 20 minutes before he talked." 20. Impressive for a man with no training. My heart stopped. What did you say?" Victor leaned down until my eyes could see his clearly. "Oh, he didn't tell you? Your perfect son?" he cracked. "In minutes. Every father does when they think their child is in danger." My throat closed. "No," I whispered. He smiled. Yes, he was lying. He had to be. Gabriel wouldn't break. Gabriel wouldn't ever put Aria in danger. Gabriel died trying to protect her. "You're a terrible liar," I said softly, voice steadying. "Gabriel never cracked. That's why you killed him." Victor's smile tightened the smallest twitch, but I saw it. I hit the nerve I needed. "Good. Stall him. Stall him. Stall him." "I killed no one," Victor said. "Gabriel died of a brain hemorrhage. Aneurysm," I corrected. "Triggered by trauma." Victor's jaw flexed. "What exactly are you implying, Margaret? That you don't like loose ends?" I said. Gabriel was one. I am one. You want the ledger because it's the only thing on earth you can't control. His eyes narrowed. And where is it? I lifted my chin. Somewhere you will never find. One of the guards stepped forward, grabbing my arm so hard my bones protested. Victor held up a hand. No. She won't talk if we break her too fast. I'll never talk, I said. We'll see, he murmured. Then he leaned closer. And if you won't talk, maybe Aria will. Ice shot through my veins. She's with police, surrounded by protection, I said. Victor chuckled. Oh, is she? Are you sure? The syndicate has many friends, many uniforms. My breath caught, but only for a moment. You won't touch her, I said. Victor finally smirked. Everyone touches what I tell them to. Then, a sound, barely audible, soft, subtle, a vibration. The tracker. Newton was close. Victor didn't hear it, but his men stiffened at the murmuring radios in the hallway. What was that? One asked. Victor turned sharply. What? Movement, the guard said. Heat signatures coming down the tunnel. Victor's eyes blazed. No police know this location. He didn't finish, because that's when we heard it. A deep, thundering boom from the entrance tunnel. A shockwave rippled the concrete. Dust rained from the ceiling. Then, Haldenport Police, drop your weapons. The world erupted. Sirens blared. Boots pounded. Shouts echoed off the walls. Gunfire cracked like lightning. Victor snarled a curse. Get the woman out, he shouted to his men. But it was too late. The steel door blew open with a blast of force that knocked Victor sideways. And standing in the doorway, covered in dust and sweat, holding a ram in both hands, was Newton. Let her go. Newton! I gasped. He charged forward, taking down one syndicate guard with a tackle that shook the ground. More officers poured in behind him, weapons raised, shouting commands. Chaos exploded. Victor lunged toward me. I kicked the steel chair backward with every ounce of strength I had. The chair smashed into his shins. He went down with a furious roar. Newton grabbed me under the arms and dragged me out of the way as bullets ricocheted off the cement walls. Margaret, stay down, he shouted over the chaos. I hit the ground, just as a gunshot cracked past my ear. Newton shoved a fallen guard off me, slicing my zip ties with a pocket knife. You okay? He yelled. I've been better, I shouted back. He almost laughed. Almost. Where's the girl? He demanded. Safehouse number 2. He nodded sharply. Good. Let's get you out. But I saw movement behind him. Victor Mallory. Blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. Gun in hand. Aimed at Newton's back. I didn't think. I grabbed the steel chair beside me, hands shaking, and swung it with every ounce of fury a grandmother can possess. It collided with Victor's arm. The gun flew across the floor, skidding into darkness. Victor snarled, turning on me. You... But Newton leapt between us, slamming Victor to the ground. Officers piled on. Handcuffs snapped. Victor screamed curses that echoed into the tunnels, and I finally let myself collapse into Newton's arms. It's over, he said, voice breathless, but I knew better. No, I whispered. One more. Because Lydia wasn't here, and she was the most dangerous loose end of all. Thanks for watching. And with no end liard. Hours later, after statements and hospital checks and countless reassurances that Aria was safe, I returned to her. She ran into my arms, sobbing into my sweater. Grandma, you came back. You promised. I held her tightly, burying my face in her hair. I'll always come back, I whispered. Always. But behind her, Dana Hollis approached with a grim expression. There's something you need to know, she said softly. I looked up warily. It's Lydia, Dana continued. She's gone. Gone? My voice dropped. She fled the scene before the police arrived. No trace, no witnesses. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. She'll come back for Aria, I whispered. Dana nodded. Yes, and when she does, she'll be more dangerous than ever. I held Aria tighter, because I knew the truth. Victor was a monster, but Lydia was a mother whose madness had been sharpened into a blade, and she wasn't done. Not with me, not with Gabriel, not with Aria, not with anything. But as I looked down at my granddaughter safe for now, I swore one final vow. Next time Lydia comes for us, I'll be the one waiting in the dark.